Jason Bader on screen. Yeah.
Thank God.
What are you going to say? Misdeeds. Misdeeds.
This is a good one, yeah.
Yeah, I got out of it. I'm happy now.
You just got back on the decks, didn't you?
We must break the will of our enemy.
There will be no mercy!
How do we find Jace after, obviously, the heartbreak of season 1 for him?
So at the start of the season, obviously, he doesn't know, which I think makes it a lot more heartbreaking. And then, obviously, we don't know what it said on that note to Cregan, but what I would imagine is that, it just sort of says what happened. I always pictured it to be like Jace would find out from his mother, but I think that Rhaenyra wouldn't even want to break the news to Jace. So I think that he would have known in Winterfell and then sat on his dragon for like days and cried about it, which is actually really sad because he's done it all alone. I mean, the exciting bit is we get to go to Winterfell, but the sad bit is that Jace obviously has lost his little brother, and at the start of the episode he has no idea, and it's just about him going through grief really and turning into a different person through that.
Yeah. And that beautiful scene with Emma as well.
Yes.
You sort of reunite. How was that to kind of perform with her? With them, sorry.
Yeah, no, Emma's great. They're such a lovely, lovely person inside and out. And I have such a joy working with them. And, on set, it's sort of like, when you're filming a scene like that, it's so joyful on set that it's so hard to get into that mindset. But I sort of, I was saying to Bethany earlier, I sort of took myself away, and we have like these separate tents on set to get ready and stuff. And I sort of went in the tent, turned the lights off, put music on, and I have this thing called a Jace journal where I like write in the point of view of Jace. So I just sort of sat there. They gave me like an hour. They like mic'd me and got me ready like first, so everybody else could get ready and before, so I had like quite a long time. And as I was writing in the point of view of Jace, just talking about that, I just sort of became Jason. It just sort of happened. And I have a little sister that's close in age to Luke, so I was just sadly putting myself in a mindset where I was imagining that with my little sister, and I love my little sister with all my heart. So yeah, it was hard, and it was quite hard to get out of that. So you got to ring a family member or a friend or speak to these guys, to sort of get out of it and cheer yourself up after. But yeah, it's not easy. Some actors have different ways of doing it, but yeah, I got out of it. I'm happy now.
You just got back on the decks, didn't you?
Yeah, I got back on the DJ decks.
Well, it was beautifully performed.
Thank
Bethany,
you.
of course. Baela can kind of relate to that grief, I think, a little bit, and what's she doing, kind of, how do we find her, and she's very much supporting him.
Yeah. I think we find the two of them in a really beautifully unique position whereby they finally get to bond in this thing that they've known to be true for a really long time. It's the first time we see them talking about the shared loss of a parent, and it's kind of acknowledged for the first time on screen that everybody knows that his father passed away. So like now in grieving Luke, they get to like grieve all these other people that they've not been able to. She finally gets to grieve Lena because everything just happened so quickly. Their parents got remarried and then they lived in different places. And I think it's really beautiful that we get to sit with them in this season and just kind of see these teenagers that are going through grief and leaning on each other and learning how to do it for the first time.
Yeah.
And what can you both tell me about kind of where their story's going to take them this season? Because obviously, all of you are in the unique position of having these books to kind of lean on a little bit, but also making your own mark on it.
I just think when you're watching season 2, just enjoy watching Jace and Baela like grow as people, like right before your very eyes. Like, apart from, I'd say, Corlys and Rhaenys, they are the healthiest couple in Westeros.
They are.
Because they do genuinely love each other and they wasn't forced together. It was like, in a way they were kind of forced, but in a way they were very happy about it. Just enjoy. Obviously we can't say much, but just enjoy watching Jace and Baela's relationship and how it grows and how they grow as people through all the emotions that are so high in the season.
Yeah, beautifully said.
Amid kind of all the darkness, they're a bit of an unproblematic
and like a little bit of light.
They are,
like
they are,
all
yeah.
the chaos.
Yeah. It's like, when somebody else comes through, oh no. Jason Bader on
Yes,
screen.
oh,
Yeah.
thank God. Yeah, like 5 minutes of joy.
Where do we find Rhaenys and Corlys as we go into season 2?
So it's about 10 days since the end of season 1, the beginning of season 2. And so for Corlys, and for both of them, but certainly for Corlys, they are still grieving the loss of Luke. Corlys is still recovering from the injury he got in episode season 1. Was it 6?
6, 7, 8.
I think it was 8.
8.
8, yeah, because I was in there.
Yes.
Yeah, and so he's still recovering from that, so still walking with a stick. And his ship is in disrepair, so wanting to hurry to get that fixed so he can get back out there and lead his men in this oncoming war. And also having to deal with certain dark clouds on the horizon due to past misdeeds.
What are you going to say?
Misdeeds.
Misdeeds,
This is a good one, yeah. Past misdeeds. And so hoping to...
I'm glad you're admitting that they're misdeeds, at least. That's a step
It's a
up.
start, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a start.
And so it's one of those things that, for the first time for him, this incredible relationship that he has, this thing that is sacred to him, is possibly under threat, and he's having to figure out how to fix
That
it.
hasn't quite manifested yet, but it's just so dangerous.
Yeah.
It's dangerous, isn't it? It's looming.
I think it's one of those things, and I don't know because I haven't seen the whole thing, but I guess it's one of those things that if you watch the whole season, I reckon you could go back and watch episode 1 and 2 and go, oh yeah, that's the beginning of Jamie. Anyway, what about you?
I think, she is shattered, like everyone. Really deeply shattered, I feel, about Luke and all of it. And digging very, very deep because, like all great people, women, mothers, carers, while everybody else is melting down, she's kind of holding them all emotionally and holding together herself emotionally. She's got on the back of that dragon and gone out, and she's been basically doing all the work. I feel like she's sort of coming back. She's absolutely exhausted. She hasn't had a bath for 10 days. Completely knackered. She's been riding around on this dragon, sort of, not crying and just dealing with everything and dealing with it and getting on. She comes back to this group of total half-wits who are all in pieces. Sort of melting down left, right and centre, and with everything that's going, seeing the world about to melt down too, and it just feels like that she's sort of carrying everything. She's carrying a very, very heavy load, and I think she's absolutely shattered and emotionally shattered and longing to where she would normally, I feel, have the solace of this. That too is not really a comfortable position at the moment because of something that is brewing or has arisen, has raised its head above the parapet, and that's another source of worry. So she's holding a lot, as per.
And there are so many moments from the book that I think fans are looking forward to. Rhaenys has some big ones ahead. Talking, I think, maybe vaguely about what's ahead for her. Yeah. How do you, as an actress, approach these huge moments that, make the show?
Gosh, can't think about it like that. Just have to, deal with each moment as it comes, I think. And I suppose, just having to deal with each moment as it comes. As we do in life, you never think, well, this is the biggest crisis that I'm going to be ever facing. You just are sort of in it, aren't you? So you just deal with it. I think there's an awareness of, as there always is here, very often with, having to explore a lot or tell a lot in a very short space of time, or with a very little, possibly very little, actually physically, that's physically said, but that a lot of exchange happens between people. And that always happens also, that stuff that you can't plan, I always find. Or for me anyway, I can't plan it because so much of it depends on the moment and on the day, and the other, and all of it actually is about your relationship with the other person and the other actor and where they are and what they're bringing and how the sort of scene pans out. So between you, because it's entirely a collaboration. And so, for example, with the scene with Daemon in episode 1. When we did it at the read-through, and it felt very like it would be just, a kind of top trump sort of a, who's got the most power kind of power play sort of a scene. And then I'm just thinking about it a little bit more and digging a bit deeper, and then coming to do it as well with Matt, and it felt like what came out of it was an awful lot of compassion that Rhaenys felt for Daemon, which was very surprising, because I feel like she's always kept him at a very, at an arm's length, and profoundly distrusted him as a character. And then, but actually discovering in that scene a lot of empathy for him, a lot of understanding, and seeing him. I think that's what happens with her through the season, actually, just seeing people for who they are, seeing suddenly everything, like the scales falling away and everything's very clear. So she's in that moment, in that scene, suddenly sees him as this hopeless little lost boy. And like when, for example, when he says to her, if you'd have killed everybody when you had the chance and Luke would still be alive, that, people have asked me, is that a moment where she suddenly has a moment of guilt? And I felt like absolutely not, that, she was very clear in that moment that was absolutely the right thing to do, and appalling that as a result that this personal tragedy has happened. But on the bigger scale, choosing not to start a nuclear war is always a good choice. But also that what he throws at her in that moment is entirely reflective of him and his own vulnerability and his own sort of desperate need to blame somebody for his own pain and for what he's going through with his dad, and the sort of in a sort of scrabbling for scraps that he's doing, sort of, and I think how she empathised with him so much was in the strange position that oddly they are both in, that slightly weirdly mirrors each other, that they're both slight outsiders, sort of displaced characters who should have, in her case, rightly so, should have been placed in a position of power and leadership, and is denied because of her sex. And him, in his own head, equally should have been placed in that position too. And the feeling of sort of role-lessness that one has in that position is very difficult. How do I position myself? And I know a lot of my work in season 1 was working that out with Rhaenys, is how, and discovering that all the time, is where do you put yourself when you don't actually have a role, and you feel like you should have a role, and you have some kind of status, but you don't have any status. And that's very strange, difficult path to tread for one's own sort of sense of self and self-esteem and value, and what is my offering, where do I stand, what's my position in this society, in this world, what can I bring? It's like being an actor without a part.
Or now king, but Charles before he was king.
Exactly. It's like sort of like you don't have constantly trying to carve out your role.
I know you can't say too much, but obviously last season ended on such an emotional and kind of breathless and heart-wrenching moment. What can you say about sort of how fans might feel towards the end of this season, the emotions that are going to be hitting us all?
I'd say get yourself an inhaler. That's what I'd say.
Get some oxygen.
We need some
Go
oxygen
outside, get some fresh air.
Yeah, like plan like a good long hike for that Monday.
Think about
after
what's
the
just
episode.
happened. Possibly watch it all again.
Yeah, maybe cancel work.
Yeah.
Get some tea.
Yeah.
English breakfast. Yorkshire tea.
And then watch season 1 and season 2 again, over and over again.
Yeah. And then get some funny memes on your phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's our advice.
I'm taking that advice. When it comes to these big moments from the books, is there any kind of pressure you guys feel when because there are a few moments I think this season that fans have kind of been looking forward to, and what's it like approaching those when you know they're in the diary?
Yeah, I think what's tough with the books is that you never know what's going to make it or not. So like we were just talking about this, is I was a massive book fan and Harry chose to not read them, which I think is a much like better thing to do, because you kind of get attached to these storylines and these characters that maybe don't even make it into the show. And
yeah, you don't want to be disappointed.
Yeah, the book is like a few different accounts of this world, and whichever one Ryan has chosen to follow is the one that makes it into the show and is therefore like the right version for everyone. But I find it, I'm trying to like detach myself from the books a bit, because you just don't want to get locked onto ideas that then never materialise.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And just before I run out of time, what was the biggest challenge for you both, and also on the flip side of that, the most rewarding part of filming this season?
Biggest challenge for me was I would say actually the emotional scenes. And then obviously reading the script and being like, oh, I do have like a few emotional scenes, and being like, okay, this is something that I haven't done an awful lot before as an actor. I'm actually kind of in a way going to be put to the test. But hopefully it's gone all right. Thanks. But the most rewarding part, I would say, is seeing the fans' reactions to everything, because Bethany was saying earlier, it's just like giving it away and you can't really do much now, and it's like you just hope that people enjoy it, and when they do enjoy it, it's just so rewarding to see, because you put so much heart and soul into what you do, and when it sees it gets a good reaction, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and the biggest challenge for me, I think, was deciding where I wanted to meet her. We like no time has passed, but this massive thing has happened to them all, and I kind of wanted to decide where in grief she was going to be. It's such a long process, one that I've been through myself, and I just wanted to like decide whereabouts she was on the like grief scale. And the most rewarding was just getting to come to this job every single day and call it job. Like, it's mad.
It ain't a job.
It's ridiculous. We just get to like put on fun clothes and wigs and have
Yeah.
So,
yeah.